me and the Lord, we got an understanding.
We're on a mission from God.
Now this could only happen to a guy like me. It only happened in a town like this. So may I say to each of you most gratefully, as I throw each one of you a kiss.
I've had people say, "Oh, that didn't happen." Well, you just called 18 people liars, and one of whom is a judge in Georgia. Okay, because you know better because and you weren't there, you know. And that's my usual comeback now when people say, "Oh, that can't be true." I say, "Oh, you were there." You know, you're going to tell those of us who were there that what we saw isn't true, and you understand it, and you weren't there. You'd be amazed at how seldom.
Pet peeves is people trying for proof. Prove it. Proof is a fool's game. It's a fool's game. You can't even prove that you're alive. You can't even prove the God.
You cannot prove anything to anybody ever.
No,
all you can ever do is offer evidence. It's up to each individual to decide how much evidence constitutes proof in their own mind. That's why there's 12 jurors on a jury, because everybody has a different level of evidence that they need to establish proof. And if one doesn't agree, there's no conviction. Okay, that's why.
Yeah,
proof is a very subjective thing. It's very individual.
Yeah, very much so. Do you want to talk about the return to, or the council glyph? That was a return to council, or remember
Oh,
that?
yes. Oh, okay, yes. Let me see. I had pictures for that last one. People probably just rolling out. We were in the Blue Mountains. What year was that? Was that 2015 also? I think it was.
Something like that, 14, 15.
Yeah. We were camped. There's a good group of us. Part of that Oregon SASQUATCH group was there. Jim DeMaine, Robin, you, Arnie was there, and
Sue.
And I got out of my tent. We were all sharing the same tent that trip. Got out of the tent in the morning to walk around and do my business, and right next to the big tree I'd been doing my business on for 3 or 4 days was a glyph. And I called the council glyph. Let me find that picture because this one is important.
As you're looking for that, was it that same day or was it the day prior, whatever, where you were standing up by yourself and you were looking up the slope and you said
that was following this.
Okay.
My trouble is I have too many albums.
Yeah. Do we have any questions from the pork and beans?
There is no pork and beans, buddy.
What?
There is nobody watching.
There's nobody watching.
because we started a second show and everybody left the first show and there's nobody coming back to the second show.
And they can't figure out that there's a second show?
Well, you could have put it in the title.
Put what? Here's our second show?
Yeah, part 2 or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a couple people watching.
Well, we got 4 people put likes and stuff beside it, whatever. So there's people.
Yeah, this is I don't. Yeah, it's just so Rob Hofer.
Yeah, I know Rob.
Oh, Rob. Hi,
Oh,
Rob.
Joe Ether's here. He's the guy who was in another meeting yesterday.
The guy that went camping with me last week.
Yeah, he's a pretty interesting guy. He's doing pretty good. And Mark Roberts found us, so that's a few people. There's at least 6 comments, 2 shares.
Yeah, if any of you guys want to share it out to some of the groups, go ahead or whatever. Beef Wellington says there's currently 5 people watching.
Okay.
Who's Nizzle Schwizzle?
Sandy Nelson's in there. Hi, Sandy.
Hey, Sandy.
Hi, Sandy.
You guys got any questions while we try to find this return to council thing? What do you want to you want to talk about it while you're looking, Tom? Or
I have trouble chewing gum and walking a straight line, so I'm just going back up now. If I don't see it this time, we'll go without it. But it's a very special glyph, and it took no time at all. Like all glyphs, if they're for you, you will know what they mean immediately.
not usually. Well, yeah, yeah, that happens a lot with me. But sometimes, like what happened with these 4 I got pertaining to my wedding with Sue.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what the first one meant initially, and then I looked at the second one. Then I knew what it meant, and then I said, "Okay, well, I got to go back to the first." And I did have the meaning of the first right, except for one very key point. So, and then I've been able to read all 4 of them. So it kind of got me back into reading them again too, which is
I can't find that thing, so let's go on without it.
Yeah,
At
whatever.
any rate, the layout of this camp, we were up the hill a ways from the main road, Phillips Grade Road. We turned off of that up this little ephemeral creek, and we were at the upper end. It was all on a bit of a slope. Even the tents were on a bit of a slope. I'll go to sleep in your usual position and kind of wake up in a pile down at the bottom end of the tent sometimes. But it worked out all right. But got up, and here was this
People put lights and stuff.
This glyph, and it's gorgeous. But it was a call to council. They wanted me to talk with them, and I later that afternoon, and I don't know how many people were in camp. There were several of you there, though, when I was called into council, and I was to walk down to just above where we turned off the road up into that little no-name creek. And there were 5 Sasquatch up on the hill. And I was down on the flat at the bottom. There were 2 from British Columbia and 2 from the local clan there in the Blue Mountains, including my teacher, Akanisha. And the 5th was Akanisha's daughter, Taranika.
Which ones were from my clan? Did you say Raj was there?
No, Raj was not there. Forrest was there, and I didn't know the other one.
Oh.
And he was big, though. He was huge. But he knew me. And and we proceeded to talk. Now, when they speak to me telepathically, it is almost always in English. Raj used English, and Akanisha uses English, and I really believe that comes out of my own mind. I think whoever they're speaking to this way, they speak in their language because it comes out of that individual's own mind. The same thing here. Okay, these were not speaking telepathically. It was physical. Okay, now the language they used was not the Sierra Sounds language. It was something that sounded to me very guttural, very much like an ancient Indian dialect. It was not a language I know or knew that I spoke or understood, but in their presence, talking to them, I did both. I spoke it and I understood it.
Well, I remember, yeah.
And it went on. It wasn't that long. It was like, I thought it was longer. I thought it was, felt like all afternoon. Standing there looking up at these 5 big dudes. But we discussed some things that had to be discussed. That was about some writing I was doing at the time, mostly, and a little bit about who I was to contact and who I was to encourage and who I was to discourage.
And admonish, probably me.
yeah, and get him under control. But the neat thing about this, what happened afterwards, as if standing talking to 5 Sasquatch isn't neat enough on its own. But I walked back up to camp and I found out then that you guys could hear them. You couldn't see them. They were out of sight in the brush timber up on the ridge. From where I was, I had a clear shot to them and I could see them very well. But you could hear them.
Well, Sue could hear them walking around up top. Mm-hmm. My hearing's not as good. So there was definitely...
Yeah, they could step on your foot and you wouldn't hear them.
There was definitely somebody. There was definitely somebody up there.
Yeah,
because Sue needs a big piece of proof before she'll even consider something. Her, but she put them up there. And the other thing is that when you came back and sat with us, you were talking in another language for a bit. You were still talking in that language.
Yeah, somebody asked me a question and I answered it in that language.
Right,
and that was one of the reasons I asked Sue to be on here for this little segment, is because she actually made the statement that it wasn't just a gibberish thing, because it was paragraphs in this language that I spoke, and I didn't know I was doing it. I was just, but it was what my mind was used to at the time. Mm-hmm. And I wish we'd had a recording of it. It would have been, but I can hear it. I can still hear it now. And it did, to me, sounded very ancient Indian dialect.
Well, I mean, I've heard them talk.
Is that American Indian or India Indian?
No, American Indian. Very, very. You know how guttural the Indian languages are.
Can I do my imitation that I actually heard?
Yeah.
I heard this clear as a bell, and it sounded like something like that, but really low and guttural, and it went on for like, I think 10 minutes or whatever. I didn't even turn my camera on. It was just like, I was like in another dimension or something.
Yeah, it was definitely. Of course, by this time I had been 5 years dealing with them, so it wasn't shocking, but it was totally interesting.
Yeah, I remember. The next day I thought, why didn't I turn my camera on? I was so like, it was so like supernatural that it didn't even occur to me. But is that sort of like
it was supernatural?
Is that what you heard? Something like that, Tom? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. It was. Yeah, to me, it sounded even more linguistic than that.
Okay.
In my mind, but yeah, it didn't sound supernatural to me. It was nothing. It was just physical conversation. The only thing supernatural about it was my being able to understand it and being able to speak it, and not knowing anything about it. I couldn't tell you what anything I said meant,
Yeah.
but they knew what I was
I don't
saying.
know. My observation is when I've heard them, like Sue and I heard them all talking one time when I found my drum again, and there was a big celebration. There was about 12 of them yelling and screaming. It always seems like, it always feels to me like I'm almost like meeting them part way, like, you know, like they're reside in a higher vibration. It's almost like we're meeting halfway or something. It feels like somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
you know, in those really magic moments like that. That's how I would describe it. But
Yeah. And someday I'm going to learn about dimensions. I know they exist, but I know nothing about them. And that is not for you to know at this time.
well, they seem to teach us all in different ways. Like they're teaching me a lot of different stuff to you, and there's a lot of stuff that crosses over and whatever too. So
We each have our own niche to fill,
right,
and they
right.
deal with us in that way.
So little Bud was checking in a little earlier, and
Huh.
he wouldn't mind if you said something about him. I felt his energy, like say something about me, say something about me. What are you doing?
The feather that I sat here has
It's gone?
disappeared.
That's odd.
That's no good.
I sat it right here.
I thought I saw you put it back with your stick. Did you put it back with your stick?
No, because it goes into a holder back there, and I have to be standing up.
I know that's pretty specialty. I'll tell you what, if any of my gift rocks, one of my 3 gift rocks disappeared, the show would be over immediately. You can't find it?
No, it's not where I put it. I know where I put it. And yeah.
It'll
show up, but it'll show up in their time.
So, say, Tom, while we're kind of at this kind of halfway through or 3/4 of the way through, could you kind of give your perspective, your overview of who these people are, how much radically different they are than us spiritually, and
Right. Actually, it's interesting because that's a question that Akanisha and I discussed at that first meeting that I told you about when he called me out to the mountains. Because I'm an ordained minister, okay, and I hold the priesthood of God. Brian was with us when Sue and I were together, and now what's we were coming out of the park one day, and here is a glyph or a structure, an 8-point star, but that is a mark of my priesthood. Okay, but what was I saying? I'm sorry.
I was asking you about their spiritual.
An 8-point star.
Oh, the spirituality.
Yeah.
He called me out there, and what's one of the first things he said was, I know you have questions concerning our spirituality, that you are trying to reconcile what you are learning with the teachings of your priesthood. Please know we serve the same master, the same creator. We understand who Jesus Christ is, that he is the savior for mankind, not for us. As do you have a savior for your people? That is not for you to know at this time. I get that a lot because my curiosity gets me into areas I'm not supposed to be in. And, but so yes, they are a spiritual people. They are not a religious people. Okay. They understand spirituality. They understand creation. Okay. But they are not religious. You have to remember spirituality is of God, religion is of man. Okay, it's man that created the 2,000 different sects and churches and methods of learning. But he did
different
that.
gods too.
Yeah, he did that so to reach as many people as he could. It'll all come out in the wash one day. We're all one people.
Yeah.
I wish people would understand that.
In terms of their abilities, they just seems.
He also told me that same time, we have no abilities that you did not at one time have. But there came a time when you stopped adapting to your environment and started adapting your environment to you. We moved indoors. Okay. When we did that, now we're conversing across the fire. We don't have need of telepathy. We're face to face. In the human body, if you don't use it, what happens? You lose it. There's still vestiges of it. Some people can still do it. And we could too if we knew the key. I mean, heavens, they do it with me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
So
they're opening up a lot of abilities in people. A lot of people who are connected with them are getting all kinds of glimpses and tastes of the abilities that they're capable of, like myself included, and beings. And, yeah. So we are. I agree with you that we have those abilities too.
Yeah. Cloaking, when you come right down to it, is a very simple thing. You know how noise canceling headphones work, where they take the noise signal, invert the polarity of it, and feed it right back in, so it cancels out the noise signal. For the positive of the noise signal, you have the negative of the feedback. Okay, so they cancel out to zero. Do that in the oral spectrum and the visible spectrum, and what do? It cancels out. Okay, it's still there. Everything's still there. You just can't see it.
Yeah.
Okay, and Arla will tell you she had an experience of cloaking where Kashima, her teacher, and she walked through a flock of wild turkeys, and they had no idea they were there. They could still see themselves. She could still see her. She could see the turkeys, everything around her, but they could not see them. The turkeys could not see them. Okay?
I remember that.
That's how that works. She has a beautiful picture of a big guy who is in the process of cloaking. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but it looks like a white shadow as he's disappearing. And she taught me, we do the same thing. If we're going to take pictures, we say, I'm going to take pictures here. If you want to be in them, you can stay. If you don't, better go. And, and that's what she did. He chose to go just as the picture was taken. So she caught him halfway.
I also think that they're teaching us about invisibility, about mind speak. They're teaching us about it. At least that subject is on the table now. It wasn't on the table 10 or 20 years ago, but it's on the table now. People talk about mind speak. They talk about coincidence. They talk about invisibility. Even Brian talks about at least 12 different ways they can cloak or go invisible or transform or trick our eyes.
Cliff Bergman, nice guy, like Cliff to death, good friend, but he has no clue about these people. Okay, they're nothing more than an animal. They're just an ape. Well, that's the scientific viewpoint. I'm glad, and I hope they keep it. He said, mind speak is nothing more than self-talk coupled with wishful thinking. Really? Okay, let me give you an example.
What did he say? Say that again.
He said, mind speak is nothing more than self-talk coupled with wishful thinking.
I wouldn't agree with that.
No. Let me give you an example.
He never had mind speak.
He never had. No.
But you know what? But I mean, he's talking. But I've met the guy too. He's a good guy, friendly guy. But you can't comprehend this kind of stuff if you haven't experienced it, like
if you have
like,
not
I mean, like
experienced.
the stuff I've experienced and you've experienced, it's like, I just talk, I don't hold anything back. But even to me, it sounds ludicrous.
Mhm.
It sounds ridiculous, but it's true. So how can these guys comprehend that? Yeah.
Back in 1980, something like that, maybe 81.
Yeah.
I had gone to dinner to a friend's house in Tenino, Washington, little town back out off the edge of the Mima Mounds, if you know what those are. Right where the snout of the glacier stopped in the last glaciation period, 12,000 years ago. And coming back from his house, long straight stretch, about 12 miles, absolutely straight road. It's got one little curve in the middle of it, just a slight curve. Concrete highway. It's the old Pacific Highway 99 is what it is. And I'm coming across there, raining. Oh, it's wet. It's a wet February night. And all of a sudden, I see this set of lights coming up behind me, and they're coming fast. And I'm doing about 50 in my pickup because it's wet. And concrete road, when it's wet, you have to be careful on. And they went by me. Well, I just pulled over and gave them all the road to go by. And I started to pull back on the road. And the voice said, "Slow down, they're not going to make the curve." So I pulled off the gas real quick and just coasted. Man, I did not want to go around that curve because what it was a basketball game between Rochester High School and Tenino High School that night. Of course, they're big rivals, right next door to one another. And as they went by me, all I could see was Letterman jackets. So Rochester students headed back home, and the cab of the truck was full of kids. And I did not want to go around that curve. I knew what I was going to see. And as it turned out, all they'd done is they'd spun out in the infield on the on-ramp to the interstate there and couldn't get out. It was so wet they couldn't get dry. So I stopped and make sure everybody was all right, and they were. Nobody was injured. And I breathed a sigh of relief and said, "I'll call you a tow truck," and went across this was before the day of cell phones, and went over and called. But you tell me how that was self-talk coupled with wishful thinking.
Yeah. There's a guy, Neil Bauman. He said, do you believe that they can be orbs of light? That's a good question. It comes up a lot.
I see orbs a lot, and I associate them with them. But Arla says those are just Sasquatch going someplace.
So they can turn into light,
Yeah.
little balls.
But I don't know. It's not anything I have any experience with. I just see them.
I've seen orbs around Sasquatch, and I've actually seen orbs forming into a shape of a being. So I would say yes myself.
I know they can travel long distances in short periods of time. My teacher has been with me in Honolulu, Oklahoma, and he's been with me in Carroll County, Georgia.
Yeah, and as far as glyphs go or whatever, I mean, on that point, Tom, I mean, I've had them leave me them in Oregon and Washington, everywhere I've gone. I'll leave them right by your car, like in a parking lot,
Right.
Stuff, and or they can appear out of thin air in your room or whatever. I mean, their abilities are beyond belief.
I think that they can bilocate. In other words, they can be in another part or another state, and they can send their energy to your room or to wherever you are, and they can interact with you and move things around. I've had that happen to me plenty of times. So that's like a bilocation. They may not be physically, their body may not be in the same room, but that also happens too. I have several people who have told me about the Sasquatch just completely appearing in their room.
Oh, yeah, this happened to me. Happened to me in Honolulu, Oklahoma.
Happened to me. I mean, what kind of being can put his image
People got to know
into a boulder? How powerful is that? Like talked about that. Like RE put his face into a boulder for 3 days when Sue and I were camping there in that area, and it's gone now. And and I was on actually Guiding Abundance show talking to Arla and Sam about it. And Arla, made a point. If Arla makes a point, it's important, right? I mean, I didn't have to coax her on that. She said, "You know whose face that is, don't you?" And she said, "It's RE's," because she's seen them like up close and personal. And so anybody who can put their face on a big, huge boulder and then remove it, they're a little more evolved than we are, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least they're more aware of their gifts or whatever, because
they're more in contact with their surroundings than we are.
Yeah,
by far.
Yeah.
And I think they have power. Not in what I mean by power is emotional power. They have great emotions, so they have great sorrows or great angers or great compassion or great love. They just have this much higher, and that's where your power comes from, your belly, that emotional stuff. So to me, there's a clue there about this great pressure of power that they have, this emotional. I think that's where you get both the love zap and the what they call infrasound. Is there's this emotional power that they can transmit, to people. It's definitely a power that they can,
There is an energy there. There's no doubt about that.
Did you want to talk about your relationship with? How do you look at your relationship with Akinesia, and talk about what it means to you and how you see it? It's not a teacher-student relationship, but talk about
on a personal level.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for him. You see, he saved my life how many times now? I only told you 3 different instances, but it happens regularly. I'd have been dead long time ago if it hadn't been for him. I told you I was sick enough with pneumonia that they notified my next of kin, and 2 days later I was up and out of bed.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't happen by happenstance, and they had cut medications.
No, they're the love and there's very few people, if any, well, Sue, but other than that, there's very few people I trust like I do them.
Well, I'll tell you how close we are. In my next life, I will be one of them. And Taranika, a little redhead, will be my mate.
Yep. You can talk about that if you want, but I'm sure I've been a Sasquatch before too.
That's all I'm allowed to say about that. I've made arrangements for cremation, and Sandy's already planned my wake.
By the way, Tom, do you remember what we discussed? It's up to you. But don't you remember you were going to give just a little bit of yourself and put it up here? And
part of me goes to the ears.
I'm getting, oh boy, am I getting a big rush. Now they want a little bit. They want a little piece of you up here.
Yep. Yeah. Part of me goes to the ears, and part of me goes to where I met Akinesia. But Sandy told me that the wake they planned, they're gonna, it's gonna be chicken hips and boiled eggs and Diet Pepsi.
Well, I think that when I get unless you outlive me, mind you, who knows? But I'll get my hands on you, and and when we have one of the gatherings in September or whatever, we're gonna go and spread your ashes up in the back of the enclosure there, because
instead of just kicking my ass.
Yeah, because I don't know. It's in my heart, but I think that clan has been very, very close to you. Other than your clan, these guys have probably been as close to you as anybody's ever been.
As a clan, they've been closer than anybody.
Do you want to talk on that as to why, whatever? I know Akinesia is your teacher, so he's number one. Yeah. But why is that? Just because? Talk about that a little bit.
It's their doing. It's what they wanted. Look how much they taught us in 5 years. you know, and look at the value of the crew that they put together to do that. When you and I started studying those glyphs, nobody in the world was talking about glyphs.
It's true.
It was not a word that was used in conjunction with them at all. It was me who coined that term in relationship to those structures.
Right.
Okay. And nobody was doing it. Now the entire world's looking for them, the entire Sasquatch world. And that's due to the work you and I and Sue did with Randy's help. Randy, to me, has always been the caretaker.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, yeah, like he told me when he first showed them to me that he just had the end, you know, he knows who to tell and who not to tell. And he trusted me. And he said that other than, you know, like the First Nations people, nobody really was talking about them.
No.
So, yeah, I mean, it really is. It really, yeah, it really is true. It really is true. And it's quite an honor.
If you remember the first 3 years or so, we seldom saw a structure. Okay. The big asterisk on the red stump, their altar, there was that one, but very few structures. But compare that now. How many more we see now? Okay. That have been brought to our minds, have been brought to our attention. But we started that study, and of course, you and I, we get pretty involved and pretty excited, and then there's Sue keeping us grounded.
Mm-hmm.
How many times did she say, "What makes you think this was made by Sasquatch?" You know.
Well, you know,
then we'd have to go through and find evidence to back that up.
They shut her up pretty good one time. The time when we were camping in the back of the enclosure there, when that tent glyph, when they drew exactly what they seen us doing, she had no answer for that.
No,
she could not dispute that one.
But she didn't dispute all of them. It was just when you and I would get too enthusiastic over one with not enough evidence.
Well, the evidence is in the energy and how you feel about it.
There is a lot of that.
The connection and how they, you know, you just know, right?
Yeah. Sue and I had some absolutely marvelous experiences at Three Bears in northeastern Oregon too. Actually,
go ahead, tell us about some of them. By the way, before the show ends, though, little Bud I was feeling him. While he wants you to say something about him, but go ahead with Three Bears. He wants you to mention him somehow.
I do. I couldn't not mention little Bud.
Go ahead with Three Bears if you want.
We were in the woods one day and had wandered off the trail down into the timber a bit, and there he is. And I asked if I could take his picture. No. I said, well, can I just take a picture? Yeah. I said, yeah, I'm going to take a picture. If you don't want to be in it, you better hide. So I took a picture and he hid. But he came back and we were talking there for a minute. He wanted to know if I was feeling good. I said, yeah, I'm stronger now than I have been in some time. I don't remember what year this was. I think it was 2015, 2016.
Around there.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, you guys started walking back up the trail or hollered for me or something. And at any rate, we knew where you were. He says, I go now, you go too.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
I go now, you go too. So I had to walk back to the road again. Yeah, he was only probably 7 years old at the time, 6, 7 years old. Just a little guy.
He's a rascal.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's full of energy.
I feel his energy. He's really mischievous.
Yeah.
Just like a kid. Like, you know, the personalities and their energies is comparable to what you would think of as in humans. Like the kids are very excitable, mischievous, and whatever. And then, you know, a male has got a stronger male. You know, it's very it's different, but it's the same. You know, as far as kids.
We was it that same trip? I think it was that same trip. No, it wasn't. This was the August trip when you and I, the same trip that we went to Harrison Lake. Um, uh, but we were searching this area and found that a stone that was so full of energy. And again, I've got a picture of it. I wish I'd have known what I was going to talk about ahead of time. I'd have had the
Oh,
picture of
no,
this thing.
Tom, that was in Golden Ears.
Yeah, that was, yeah. It was, but it was that same trip.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I tried to take a picture of that stone and could not get it in focus. Okay. And my camera was excellent, but I could not get a clear picture of that stone. It had so much energy. And I was going to take the stone, and they said, no, leave that stone. And so the next day, we came back, and I was going to try again, and we couldn't find it, remember?
Right. And I
And
remember on that trip too, I was getting a lot of
let me
communication.
finish.
Oh,
Here.
okay, go ahead.
We started looking for it, and I knew exactly where it was because there's a cedar tree there and a leaning tree right next to one another. Okay, and so I knew exactly where that thing was on the ground, and it wasn't there. And the funny part of it was there was no spot there where it had been taken from. It was just gone.
Mhm.
And you were wandering around looking, and that's when you came up with the little bud stone.
Right. Well, I was led to they led me to the Little Bud Stone.
Yeah.
I just knew. I mean, but the other interesting thing is that during that trip, as they were telling me, remember I was saying that they want you to go by yourself the next day and just sit somewhere alone. And then
Right.
when you went to that stream or whatever,
Right.
something amazing happened there too. But yeah, that was amazing because
that's right.
That Little Bud Stone, yeah, they led me to that and I gave it to you. Yeah.
That was my time of lost time.
Right. But they wanted you there and they were letting me know that you had to go there. And I left it in my car, right, while I was sleeping.
Right. And I drove up there, parked, walked in, and that's where I got to see that this was 2015 because the twins were 8 months old then. Because it was in August of 2015. And they were born in January of 2015.
I'm just checking to make sure it's still going, running.
And I got to see the twins that day, and at 8 months old, two little fur balls.
Are you allowed to describe them?
Just they were about 2.5 to 3 feet tall, and there's it's right down at the bottom there.
Thank you.
And they were 2.5 to 3 feet tall, and just little fuzzballs. One of them hanging on either side of mom, and they're just absolutely pieces of work. Their head was very round, so obviously that sagittal crest doesn't form before adulthood. But then Randy's juvenile doesn't have it either, so that's a good where Raj does, but it's not heavily pronounced, not like it is in Patty.
I know Randy has a picture of one that looks like a juvenile. It almost looks like Cousin It. So much hair. Is that kind of like?
That's kind of like what the twins looked like. Yeah, they're just big ball of fur and these dark eyes peering out. And they both have dark eyes. But neither one of them got her blue eyes.
That's funny. I was just going to ask you that.
Yeah. And yeah, that was that trip. But then I thought I was there about 20-25 minutes. And
Yeah.
Was there anything? Was there anything more that went on there during that trip?
It was when I got back to the car, I thought I'd been in there about 20-25 minutes, and it was almost 3 hours. I'd lost that much time.
And have you come up with anything since that you recall, or what do you think was going on?
No, there was they just wanted me there to see him. That's why they wanted me there alone. And I haven't seen him since. But then I haven't been able to get back there since either. And of course, you know. Oh, I did want to make one point here. You're getting married tomorrow, and you and Sue getting married at Peace Arch Park. It's come to my mind that that'll probably be the last speech that Sue ever knows.
Yeah, how ironic, eh?
How ironic, yes. Okay, Three Bears. Sue called me one day, and
I'm gonna go grab a coffee, so I'll let you guys continue, and I'll just mute my sound.
well,
Go
yeah,
ahead, Tanya.
better hurry. But Sue called me one day and wanted to be able to. She wanted to know if I'd go with her to camp because where she was camping, there was no activity. I said, well, you know, this is summer now, late June, early July. As you know, where you were camping was 2,000 feet elevation. They're higher elevation now because that's where the food is. So we took off and yeah, I can come this weekend. And we loaded up and went to a place called Three Bears. Now, Three Bears is just a spring, but where we were was at the end of the road, and the end of this road goes into a wilderness area. It's actually wilderness on three sides of us there, and we're camped at the end of the road, and it's just a rough camp. It's one that deer hunters use in the fall, and that's all it is. There's nothing else there. We got there, we got out of the car, set the tent up, and while we're doing that, on a tree nearby, 20 minutes later, from another direction. 20 minutes later, from a different direction. The entire 3 days we were there, we had a knock every 20 minutes from every different direction.
Wow.
Okay. They were with us. The second day we were there, we had a deer show up in camp. Now, this was a yearling mule deer doe, and she had a mark on her side, so she was very identifiable. But she stayed in camp. I mean, and this is not a park, okay? This is, like I say, it's a hunting camp. And not many deer are going to come in and stay in a hunting camp. She was with us the whole time we were there. First I thought, well, she's less afraid of us than what she would be afraid of out in the woods. But then I realized that isn't true. It was a different deal. We went back the second year, and we took Brian with us that year, and she came back.
Wow.
And she was still a yearling doe. Still had that same mark on her side.
Wow, I don't even understand that.
I think she was a shape-shifted Sasquatch.
Okay, now there you go. Yeah.
Okay. I really think that's what she was.
Yeah.
It was some type of a messenger for them, and that's
Or
the easiest way.
companion or
Yeah. That's
or
the easiest
teaching.
way to.
It's a teaching, but that's the way they teach. They just show you something and you have to figure out that it's a teaching.
Yeah. And again, at that time, I was still using CPAP, so I had to plug in at night, and I had an inverter. I could plug in the cigarette lighter in the car, run it through the inverter, and run my CPAP. And I could get about 5 or 6 hours out of it. And I mistimed it or something. At any rate, it pulled the car battery down. And it's 21 miles to the near first house from where we were. And we had not seen another soul, not another car, the whole time we were there. And what happened was it was the second night that it did it, because I guess we drove some the next day, the idea of of getting the battery charged back up to full, and I don't think I got it fully charged, so I threw it down too far. And the coffee good?
It's still, I haven't poured it yet. It's
Oh, okay. So we Sue says, "Well, I'll walk out and find somebody and get some help." And so she took off. When she took off, she had one of them facing her on the hill above the road the whole time. And that lady walked 8 miles before she ran into two guys in a Jeep. And of course, here they come, look like the cavalry coming down the hill. Gave us a jump, got us started. But and we didn't shut it off again until we left. So we were back home. But that was so interesting, that
So
trip.
she got an escort for protection, or
She got an escort for protection, and she walked. We clocked it. It was 8 miles that she walked before she ran into that group. They were just looking for a place to go hill climbing with their Jeep, and yeah. But
I
like I said,
wanted to go back to that stone that you said was obviously had this really high energy. For the first 2 or 3 years that I was connected with the Sasquatch, and actually before I even knew what Sasquatch were or anything, is they took me and gave me a vision of this stone, and it was a dream for, like, I guess it was 3 hours or something. I was dreaming. This stone was talking to me. It was like a rock god, and the Sasquatch say, uh, talk to the trees and listen to the stones. And I think that's just part of the magic of this world. Even a stone can talk and communicate and do things that they have a history. In some ways, the stones have a greater spiritual power, a greater spiritual responsibility than any other beings. So the water and rock make life, but when the Sasquatch say talk to the trees and listen to the stones, there's something to that, because the stone is the foundation of life, really. And in the Bible, it talks about 60, I think it's 65 times that God is represented as a stone. This is the foundation stone, and God is my rock, and
yeah,
things like that. So I just thought I'd throw that in there, that this this connection with the stones as being high energy or high power or conscious.
I believe that. I said, and again, that stone had so much energy to it. It's unreal, and it had some very interesting markings on it. Let me take just a moment and see if I can find that. I know I have pictures of that. I just have to locate them.
The other thing, I just thought I'd throw this out there, that the Sasquatch, one of the things I've heard them mention, and the people who know Sasquatch, the Sasquatch is saying, we are all one and we're all connected. And what they were teaching me those first 3 years was about the all one and the no space. And it took me about 3 years to really delve into it and feel it out. But that also, we're all one, and there's to them, it's no space is like a special thing, explanation. But Christ also said, I and my Father are one, I and my brother are one. And so what I'm saying is the spiritual understanding of the Sasquatch and the spiritual understanding of Christianity is not that far off. When
No, it's not.
You have to look at it and feel it out and see where the similarities are,
Hmm.
In no way do I think the Sasquatch have a more primitive uh, religion or insight into spirituality than we do. I think it's more deeper and richer than ours.
I think it's a much closer contact, uh, relationship with deity than we have, than we ever could have.
I think so too. Which I'm really glad you said that they have the possibility of having a richer and deeper and more intimate connection with the creator than we do because they're in creation all the time.
That's right, and believe me, that's an important aspect. You have to be be there to be part of it.
Yeah.
Because remember, first creation was the earth and the water,
Right.
And also I heard the other day that the Sasquatch take responsibility about this thing about when we fell from grace in the Garden of Eden and something. The Sasquatch weren't in the Garden of Eden. They were when they were created, they understood that it was their job to protect the earth and to observe the earth and look out for the earth, and they never left that. And we're the ones who got caught up in the good and evil and all that other kind of stuff that Cain and Abel, and
Oh yeah, and leave it to us.
downhill from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Somebody got a phone ringing?
Oh, that's my phone ringing, but it's out of my reach. And if it's important, they'll call back.
Hopefully not repeatedly.
Tom's looking for his photograph of that rock that we were talking about.
Yeah, talk amongst yourselves for a minute.
Well, that goes back to Brian. Brian has like one of his most significant gifts is three rocks that are, and it has a whole story behind it and connection to everything.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know those rocks.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell that right now. That's too big a story. Besides it's, but I would like to share, the four glyphs that I found with Tom at some point, because he'll appreciate
Sure, go for it. This is a good time to do it.
Do it right now?
Yeah. I've only got about 8,000 BC pictures I've got to look through here.
Well, but I want you to pay attention though.
I'm listening.
Oh, listen, what a greedy little guy.
No, this is a visual. Okay.
Okay. You're on my visual.
Okay.
See, they left a message.
Do you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the second one. Wait a second. Oh, okay. That's the second one. I mean, this is the first one here, but initially, I had just met Mark Roberts and another friend of a good friend of Susan and myself, Laurel, was there and whatever, and we were, actually I was camping with Mark and this other guy, and Laurel came by for a couple hours. So I thought the energy and everything and whatever was because of Mark, mostly because he's got such an amazing connection, and of course they know Laurel too, but they've already met her. And I thought this is initially why I got this glyph, and I read it right, except for one thing. I read one thing wrong. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to go back to this one. So a couple of days later, I went back and there was this, right? There was this glyph there.
Mm-hmm.
And this stick here, when I seen this, initially I thought, oh, okay, well, they're welcoming Mark into the fold because they were so excited to meet him. But then I remember that I had to go back and look at the first one again. So then a new understanding came to me. But anyway, so I'll start with this one. So here I am looking at this. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, here I am looking at this glyph here. And what this is showing me is what happened when they were showing me what happened when I saw the initial glyph, and this is exactly what transpired. You see this welcome X here, right? Can you see my?
Yeah.
Okay, this is the welcome X. This little stick here is they're welcoming a new member into the family. That's Sue, but I didn't realize this at the time. I thought it was Mark. And this is the raven. There were two ravens involved, phony ravens. This is the one that was in the bush that I didn't see initially. And so this is the welcome X and Sue. Here's the road. You know the road too, Tom. Here's the road. Here's the entrance in. And then here's the raven that was watching me. Because as I was looking at this, I looked over and there was a raven. I knew immediately. He's watching me, like he's looking me dead in the eyes. And I had that knowing. This guy is okay. And then, of course, he let me watch him for a bit, and then he flew off. And then this fella came out of the brush or the bush right in behind him and flew in behind him. There's always a pair. There was a pair with us that whole weekend that were kind of hanging out. So here's this raven. Here's this raven. Here's like the kind of like the little walkway that goes around where the horses are tied up. You know what I mean, Tom? They're in behind here. And here is where I saw the first glyph. So they were showing me in a glyph, like, you know, a picture exactly what transpired. And the raven made sure I seen him, and then he flew off, and then the other one. And here's, I figure somebody was watching me from behind too. Sasquatch character guy, so a Sasquatch individual. Because I've often had little rocks and whatever tossed out and like, hello, we're here, right when I've been recording my videos and stuff. So that's what I saw happen there. So that's what I got that understanding. But when, like I said, when I first saw it, I thought it was Mark. But then I went back and I looked at this again. And then I saw Susan, my glyph, woven into the A. This is our fish glyph. This is the glyph of Susan and my connection. So it's woven into the A. So they welcomed her and us, even though I was already part of the family and she was, in a sense. It's just kind of like a formal introduction. And then there's the extra appendage on the A, which is a new member of the family. So, right? So I got that. So then it all started coming together. So it was about Sue. And what was funny is that when we had Barbara Jean on the other day, she said, I think that glyph is about you. And at that point, I didn't realize it yet when she said it. That was after the fact. And I didn't even remember her saying it. So she didn't influence me in any way. I just went back and I was listening to the tape actually last night. So yeah, she hit that right on. So there is Sue and I, the extra appendage. And there's little feathers here too, which are quite interesting. Which I think represent individuals. So, okay, so then I went there, and then this was the second day, and I said the ravens and whatever were watching me, and it was like amazing. Like as soon as I seen that raven there, I knew instantly that's Ari, or looking through the raven's eyes. And so then I think a day after that, I went back, and there was this, and you notice here's the feather here.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that feather. Yeah,
well, I think that represents, I guess, Sue or I, or our union maybe. And this one is, this is the path that we're on with them. And this is us where we are in the path. And like figuratively, spiritually, in a bunch of different aspects. And then I went back another day, and here we are again. Here's Sue and I, our union. Or here's two sticks, which was us, and now we're walking the path together. So that's the 4 I've got so far. And I think I left a few details out, but basically it's basically an ongoing message, a celebration about our wedding, because, you know, let's face it, Tom, I mean, as you know, right from, they connect people, and they connected Sue and I early on, and they've been consistently behind us. And so this is you know, this is big news for them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you can see where I'm going with those glyphs, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's amazing. And you know, on that same trip, You know, and this is undeniable, Tom. On that same trip, we saw, like, we had some really amazing stuff happen. I'm making a video on the whole thing, but I thought I'd hold off until after the wedding to see if there's another glyph involved or whatever. But on that glyph, on that trip, we saw a Sasquatch that was a human being, and there's absolutely no other explanation for it. And we were feeling the energy and other amazing stuff was going on at the same time. But we saw a Sasquatch that was impersonating a human being. That's not the first time I've seen that. But it was physically impossible for it to have been a human being. So there was a lot of magic going on. And yeah, they're a pretty happy gang right now. I'm sure they'll be at the wedding too.
Say, Brian, we had some questions about the rock with Irie's face on it. Could you put that up as like either on the screen or on behind your, you know?
Absolutely. I'll try to find it, and Tom can go on. Anyway, I wanted to share that with you, Tom.
It should be on your Zoom, because you used to have it behind you in the Zoom, right?
I'll find it. But if you, but anybody out there doesn't think that they love us and that they are loyal and that just look at the love behind these messages there. They are loyal to the people they support. I mean, it's unbelievable. Pretty cool, eh, Tom?
It is, absolutely. It's what kept us going for so long, just trying to figure.
I'm sorry, Tom. And one thing I wanted to add is all of these glyphs are in exactly the same place. So they were changing them, like I didn't find them all over the place. They're all in the same place. And they're taking things away, adding on, that kind of stuff. So go ahead, and I'll try to find that rock picture for everybody.
And I'm giving up on this one. I know it's around, but I'd be hanged if I can.
So, Tom,
you know how that works. When the one you want, you can never find.
One of the greatest things I ever seen, and I told Barb this too, and what a privilege, and it just shows you how much they love the people who work for them or whatever. But when Barb was up here and when that owl was with her for 3 or 4 hours, I almost said 3 or 4 owls. I'm getting that rush of energy again every time I say that. But that was Ari. What a privilege. He was with her for 3 or 4 hours, watching her and helping her. She said she was working through some things or whatever, as she was having a hard time at that time. Had lost 2 very significant individuals in her life, right? So, and
yeah,
to me, it's just so. I mean, the love that they show and the compassion, whatever. That's the thing that really sticks with me. Is the thing that touches my heart. Yeah.
Hey, Tom, have you ever had a love zap, or have you ever had an experience from them that was so touching that it actually made you want to cry?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's a good question. We asked everybody that question.
Yes. Right at this moment, actually. Yeah, most of them I can't. The twins' birth was one. That meeting with Rajase was unbelievable. Absolutely, irrevocably beautiful. And there was a night in Onaby, Oklahoma. When I was there to talk, and Arla and I were sitting next to one another at our tables at the back of the hall. And a lady walked in that I knew from the prior year, an artist, and with her was an Indian girl. Akanisha said, "This is her. Get to know her. She needs you." And so when they saw me, they came back, and she was introduced. Her name was Cindy. She was a full-blooded Cherokee Indian. She had been in the Murrah building in Oklahoma City when the two anarchists decided to bomb the place. She lost her husband and her 3-year-old son in that blast. And she had undergone 27 surgeries even to be where she was then. It was my turn on the dais right then. So I excused myself and went and delivered my presentation. Was interrupted right at the tail end of that by a retired professor who apologized and said he had to stand and make a statement. And I was talking about the Patterson-Gimlin film. But he had to make the statement that he had never seen a better put together presentation presenting all the facts than what he had just witnessed in the hour, preceding hour. That just blew my own horn a little bit, I guess, but to get my mind down off this high.
He's right. It is fantastic.
And so I went back and asked Cindy, did she want to get a cold drink? And we went out to one of the vendors and got a Diet Pepsi and was sitting there talking because I knew I was supposed to get in touch, find out about her story. And we sat and talked all afternoon. They made plans to come to our cabin that evening. And when we camp back there, we rent a cabin or two, and we'll have, 3 people sleeping in the beds in the cabin and 18 more camped around the outside of the cabin. Well, this was the same way. And Arla, I had a bedroom. Arla had upstairs bedroom, and one other person had a bedroom inside. Arla's was kind of a loft affair. Well, we got back to the cabin, and Cindy and Rebecca, who were the other lady's name, were going to come over that evening to visit. Well, they got lost. I couldn't find the place. About 6 o'clock, I was so tired I could not keep my eyes open. And thinking back on it, I don't think that was all my doing. I think I was engendered to do that. So I went to bed. At 11 o'clock, I wake up wide awake. And I get up. Everybody else is heading to bed. And so I'm sitting there quietly. And the people said that they had finally gotten there about 8 o'clock or 8:30, but they wouldn't wake me up because I was sleeping. And I was a little irritated at that. I'm of an age, I know when I can sleep and when I don't have to sleep. And but at any rate, it happened. Everybody else went to bed, and I was sitting there by myself in that cabin. And Akanisha came. He came right into the cabin. I was fortunate it was vaulted ceiling, so there was plenty of room for him. And he told me what he wanted me to do for that girl, for Cindy, and how I was to handle it, what I was to do, some avenues to explore with her. And he held my hand in his, between his like that. Now, of course, his hand came up to about here on me, but nonetheless, he did. And when he left, I was flat in tears. It was so deep, so profound, so involved. Arla, the next day, I heard Red Stripe talking to you, but I knew it wasn't for me, so I just stayed right where I was. And So we went back to the venue that day. As soon as Cindy came through the door, I got up and I actually met her at the door. She didn't come through the door. That's right. Rebecca came in and said, Cindy's outside and would like to talk to you. So I went outside. We took a walk in the woods and we spent all morning on a log to sit on and just talked and cried and talked and held one another and talked. And I have pictures of her taken the first day when we were sitting drinking that cold drink and talking, and the second day when she was ready to leave, and you wouldn't believe it was the same person. You would not believe it was the same person. Her countenance had changed so much. Her outlook was so much brighter. And she was able to go back home to Oklahoma City and pick up her life because of what Akanisha taught her.
And you.
Yeah. I've got that rock. You want to see it now?
Yeah.
So go on with your story, but oh, wait a minute.
That's not a rock.
That looks like this universe.
Hang on a minute.
It's like the Milky Way.
Yeah, hang on a second.
So you were weeping. Because I've heard stories, and I know what it's like to be filled with so much love that you actually can't even stand up.
Yeah. I know. You just have to start weeping. Like
Yeah, there's that rock. That's beautiful.
That's for who was asking. That's Ari's. Here's his face. Here's his, well, two eyes, his nose, mouth, chin, cheeks. I mean, it's obvious. And went back there next time, and it was gone. So
there's lunch. You want it?
Ooh, looks like grits.
It does, doesn't it?
No, I don't want that. I don't want anything to do with any of that. So anyway, does that answer people's questions on that? Yeah, it's beautiful.
That's the same one that you have behind your, your what do you call it? Your, your virtual background.
Your background, yeah.
Well, what's really compelling about it is that, like I said, I was on the Guiding Abundance show, and Arla said, "You know whose face that is?" She said, "It's Ari's," and I knew it was Ari's anyway. But yeah, just amazing. So, oh, and by the way, I apologize to the Guiding Abundance people. I went to bed like I couldn't believe it or not. The show started at 6 o'clock. I was so tired. I could not make. I went to bed and didn't get up till like 3 in the morning or something. So.
Speaking of being tired, I'm kind of losing it over on my side. It's just 3 hours is a little bit more. So maybe we can wind it down, or just let me go. No,
let's get Tom to maybe wind it up and say something. If you want to have a message that from Akanisha or from yourself, or say something that you wanted to talk about, and we'll have you on again.
Yeah, keep an open mind. I don't care if you disagree. I tell people I have never learned anything worth knowing from people who agree with me totally. Okay? You learn from people who have a different idea. But you have to keep an open mind. Even if you disagree with that idea, you put it into storage and you keep it. Then you can test it the next time that situation comes up. Test that hypothesis. If it's valid, keep it. If it's not, discard it. But keep an open mind. Think about what's being said. I have no time for those people who discharge it out of hand. Oh, that can't be true. You don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I do know what I'm talking about. I've been there. When you've spent 63 years studying these people, you gain an insight. Okay? And it's not an insight that you get by seeing one cross the road in front of you while you're doing 60 miles an hour down the highway. Okay? I never tell an untruth. Okay? Everything I ever say is true as I know it. That does not mean I don't misinterpret things. I'm like everybody else. I see things through my own eyes, through my own experience, and I am totally capable of misinterpreting something. But if I say something, it is flat what I believe it to be.
Right.
Okay. That is important. Okay. I don't misconstrue things. I don't fake things. Never, ever. Okay. Please understand that. Please believe that. I have written, I'm on my 14th book right now, 15, something like that. I may have lost track. Not all of them are Sasquatches. What I'm writing right now is not. But everything I do is on my new website, www.tomcantrall.com. And the reason for that isn't ego. It's the fact that my first website was www.ghostsofrubyridge.com, which was my first book. And that worked fine when I only had one book. If I stretch that name out and include all 15 titles now, it'd be a pretty long title for a website. So I just chose my own name, and then I can have anything I want on the website. In addition to my books on that website, I've also got a page just for videos that I've done. I've put together on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. I've got a page for Sasquatch type information, essays, and stories I've written. And the newest one is I'm serializing the book that I'm writing now for free. I've got chapters that I'm up through, I think, chapter 5 right now. And after tomorrow, chapter 6 goes on. And so I'm writing on chapter 11, and chapter 6 is already published. So.
Can you teach Brian how to finish a book?
Brian, yes, I know that problem. I have a whole album of a whole.
I got a feeling that maybe because I've had so many, like the last 2 months have been so incredible. Maybe I'm supposed to include that in the book, I guess. But
that's for something to do after you get married.
But anyway, Tom, I found that where I'm at right now and everything is, I really don't. I just speak the truth like you, lay it all out there. I don't hold anything back, and I really don't care who believes me anymore. It's just the right, as long as the right people believe me.
Right. That, and I'll talk to anybody. I'll answer anybody's questions. No. My website has very good contact me. Says every page has a contact me on it. You send me an email that comes directly to me. I answer any question I get as quickly as I can.
Yeah.
And if I don't get back to me, I do have a tendency to forget. Because let's face 78 years old.
Let's face it, 75% of the people. The only thing that they can think of is when you mention Sasquatch or whatever. The first thing and the only step they can make is, why isn't there a picture of one? And they can't even get beyond that. And then even in the the Sasquatch world, there's such diversity and division. So it's
when people jump on that, stick to it, it just shows me their stupidity. They're not learning. They're not willing to learn. They want to argue a point rather than learn. There's an essay on that website on why my pictures are blurry. Well, it'll tell you exactly why your pictures are blurry when you try to take a picture of a Sasquatch.
Well, the true learning of the Sasquatch is not in measuring their footstep, but in finding out who made that footstep and what their message is for you.
What he was doing.
Oh boy, ain't that the truth?
If you find footsteps, there's a reason.
Yeah. So on that note, Tom, it seemed like we didn't hardly cover anything. So we'll have you back on, like we've had people back on a number of times in Europe.
We'll do that. It's a wonderful subject.
I got one last spiritual question, and that is there's a theme that's been going on with the people who we get on the show, and there's a certain percentage of people who have a good prayer life with Sasquatch, and so I want, since you're a man of the cloth, can you say something about praying for the Sasquatch or praying around the Sasquatch instead of like yelling or hooping, just saying prayers or doing your own personal prayers?
Yes, just talk to them. If a prayer is what's in your heart, issue it. They'll understand. And believe me, they understand us better than we understand us. Somebody says, "How do you know they're intelligent?" They don't have anything to do with us. That's number one.
Funny little story about and it kind of collaboration. This is very quick. It collaborates what you're talking about sitting around and waiting for them.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes if you're not doing anything or whatever, they'll get curious and they'll wonder why you're not doing anything. Like one time we were up in the woods there, and Zoli and Randy and I, we decided, well, we'll hide. We could hear them knocking and doing all kinds of stuff, but they had a visual of us, and these guys must have been small or something, or maybe they knew they probably knew where we were, and they just wanted to show us. But anyway, so we thought, okay, well, we'll go and hide behind this huge boulder, and wait. And so I think they probably knew we were there, and the reason what happened is just to let us know. But some people perceived it as, they were curious and where are they? It could have been that too. But anyway, we're sitting there waiting and kind of hiding from them. And all of a sudden a little rock comes flying over the top of the boulder or whatever. So I don't know if that was because they didn't know we were there. I think it was, in retrospect, I'm thinking it was just like, we see you.
Yeah.
We know you're there.
And in conclusion, I'd like to say that the finest days of my life have been spent in the presence of those people. Okay. They have, for the last 11 years, have been the core of my life.
Yeah.
I have some wonderful people around me that help me enjoy them. And I'm totally grateful for them.
And one other thing, Tom, I think is that you will agree that once one clan knows you, they all know you, and whatever. Because I mean, when I've gone everywhere that I've gone, well, not everywhere I've gone, but I've gone all over the place, and I've been greeted with that energy. Like Harrison Hot Springs is really strong. That's one, but there's never any energy like your own. Mm-hmm. Nobody ever hits me up like my clan.
Well, your clan is very, very powerful to start with.
But they know you everywhere if they know you. So
right.
Anyway,
thank you very much, guys. I've totally enjoyed this time.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, we'll get into some more.
So glad you're cooking with us on the Pork and Bean Show.
All right.
So on behalf of Pork Cunningham and Frank Oliver Baines, we'd like to extend warm wishes and good health and well-being to our guest, Tom Cantrall, and hopefully you're looking good. You're looking better than the last time I've seen you.
I'm actually feeling pretty good.
And if you get any better, and if you're feeling any better, we might have to get you back up here again.
Yeah, maybe by summertime we can do that.
Anyway, thanks, Tom.
Okay,
thanks everybody for listening, and see you next time.
Sky look down on all the people looking up at the big sky. Everybody's pushing one another around. The big sky feels sad when you see the children scream and cry. But the big sky too big to let it get him down. Big sky too big to cry. Big sky too high to see. they got problems. They get depressed and they hold their heads in their hands and they cry. People lift up their hands and they look up to the big sky. But the big sky is too big to sympathize. Big sky's too occupied. But we would like to try. And if you're bad inside, big sky's too big to cry. We'll be free. We won't care. Just you wait and see. Till then, take a lead. Don't let it get you
Thinking about my grandfather and how he had a special rocking chair built that would lean forward rather than backwards so he could fake interest in any conversation.